Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Emma the Cat Lady, and you join me here. We're at the sink in Big Mountain to start off this new section of the Science of Fallout. So we are starting on Wasteland Botany today. So last week we were talking about all the fungi, and today we're going to start talking about the plants. So botany, if you don't know, is the study of plants. And plants have been used by humans for basically our species' entire history. We use plants for food, we use plants for medicine, crafting things, making things, even poison. And many modern medicines were actually originally derived from plants, including the opiates, the really strong painkillers, aspirin, and digoxin. We've also domesticated plants, selectively breeding them for desired properties like larger fruit or higher yields of seeds and things like that. And there's even been hybridization and cross-pollination.
Hey, don't believe a word that sink says. She's all lies.
Yeah. That's the biological research station. He's very chatty. So cross-pollination, we've actually even created new plants. So if you look into the history of citrus fruits like lemon and limes and oranges, that they're not actually naturally occurring, but they've been created by humans to suit our needs basically and what we want. And with different plants, there's many useful parts of the plant. So it could be the leaves that are useful, the flowers, the fruit, the roots, the seeds, the sap. Is that Muggy shoving me out the way? It is. He's so rude. So it could be all these different things, or sometimes all of the above for certain plants, that, you know, different parts of the plant might have different uses for humans. So it's very interesting kind of topic. And when we're kind of getting into the details of Fallout's flora, we're going to discuss a few overall factors first, just in how I've decided to classify the plants we can find in the games. This series is going to be largely focused on Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4, because both of those games have a much more in-depth crafting system, while Fallout 3's crafting system was very minimal. And they also both, Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4, have some kind of survival mode where hunger is a factor for your character, so your character needs to eat regularly to stay alive, essentially. So that is what we're going to be talking about for this series. First note that I have put potatoes and jalapenos under vegetables. I know they're technically fruit, biologically they're fruit, but they're used like vegetables, so that's why I've classified them in that section instead of the fruit section. I've also classified the items as edible, which means that the game allows you to consume the item as it is, with details of the effects of the raw item after consumption. Separately, I have classified it as food or not food. For that purpose, that means that it reduces your hunger in either hardcore mode of Fallout New Vegas or Fallout 4 survival mode. Some of the effects do vary with your survival skill or with certain perks like Chemist, so bear that in mind as well, that sometimes what items do will look different depending on your perks and your skills and things in the games. I've listed items as cookable, which means that they're used in crafting specifically to make food recipes. So that is that you use it to make a food item at a campfire or a cooking station that you can then consume, that is classed as food. If it's craftable, that means it's used in crafting other items, which includes drinks, healing items, chems, poisons, weapons, armour, adhesive, and anything else. I've also put the boxed kind of pre-war food items you can make with a food processor from the Contraptions Workshop in Fallout 4's add-on in that category as well, because you're not just making, it's not cooking food, if you know what I mean. It's kind of a different process, so just to bear that in mind. And the final note, the reason that we're here to start off with is, if you have Old World Blues and Fallout New Vegas, all of the plants that you can find in the wild in New Vegas can be grown here by the Biological Research Station, the Sink in Big Mountain. So if you have the DLC, you can find the seeds and give them to the Bio Research Station. He is a bit of a creep, so be wary, he's a bit creepy. But if you do that, then all the plants here will grow. Muggy is just getting in the way constantly. So you can see we've got prickly pear, jalapenos, maize, which is also corn, that's a whole thing, brock flowers, banana yucca, barrel cactus, Nevada agave, pinto beans, slander root, white horse nettle, and honey mesquite. So, you know, all the kind of plants that you can...
I love mugs so much. I just might kill myself.
Good for you, Muggy. Stuff in this place is also chatty. So that's most of your kind of wild plants that you'd find round about the Mojave Desert, and the Biological Research Station here does also kind of create them for you. One that I think is actually missing is the Coyote tobacco, which is the first one that we're going to talk about, but he's decided that's not worth growing here, but we will track some of that down. So when you're crafting, of course, you can do a lot with the campfires, or here you've got the hot plate, which lets you do all the different plants. To say the Coyote tobacco is not included in this list for some reason. So there's quite a lot of the list of recipes, and this is just the kind of campfire recipes essentially. There's a lot. There's so much crafting in this game, and it's great. But we're going to head over to the Mojave Wasteland, and we're going to find ourselves some tobacco plants and get started on the first item. Oh, actually, I did forget to mention one thing. Thank you. One thing I did forget to mention actually is there's an ingredient called salient green, which you can basically break down any plant into salient green, and then you can use that to basically clone any of the plants that you want. So if you're struggling to find one that you need for something, you can break down another plant type that's more common, and then clone something that's a bit rarer that you want to get your hands on for whatever reason. So interesting little thing, and that's also part of the Old World Blues add-on. That's not in the base game, but we're going to head over to the Mojave, and I'll see you over there in just a second. Okay, welcome back to the Mojave. So we're here at... oh, hello. Oh, that's the wrong weapon. I've turned all the... done the usual thing, combat AI off and everything, but I'm just gonna get rid of this guy. Don't have time for Legion Assassins today. Anyway, so we're here at Wolfhorn Ranch, which was, Ulysses' place actually at one point. Interesting kind of historical tidbit there. But it's a common place for the Legion Assassins to be hanging around. But I'm here because we do have quite a selection of the plants actually growing in planters on this place. So obviously, well, presumably it was Ulysses himself that did that, has been, cultivating some of these plants for his own use. And I say we've got the Coyote tobacco plant right here. So it's got these big long leaves, and then it does grow quite tall. So the scientific name is Nicotiana attenuata, and it's a wild tobacco plant that is native to the western United States. It has white tubular flowers, which this one doesn't seem to have any flowers on it, that have kind of 5-pointed petals, and it also has these long leaves. There's two predators that live on this plant, the tobacco hornworm and the tomato hornworm, and it has an interesting defence mechanism against them in that the plant releases trypsin protease inhibitors that basically reduce the worm's ability to digest the plant material. It also produces high levels of nicotine, which the worms don't tolerate well. Nicotine is a toxin, and it is tobacco after all. So this plant has long been used for medicinal and ceremonial purposes by many Indigenous Native American groups. Obviously, do not recommend smoking tobacco. It's incredibly bad for you, and nicotine is the most addictive substance in the world. As an ex-smoker, it's just not worth it, and if you already do, I would strongly recommend trying to stop. It's hard to do, but it's better for your health and your wallet in the long run. So just to be clear, not recommended in real life. In Fallout New Vegas, you can harvest leaves to get your hands on some Coyote tobacco chew, and it's treated as a chem, it's not treated as food. So we've got quite a few there. So it's treated as a chem, it's not food. You can consume it as is. It won't reduce your hunger if you're in hardcore mode, but it does act as a stimulant, so you get +1 perception and +1 agility for 4 minutes, as you can see. And if you're in hardcore mode, it does remove 30 points of sleep need essentially, so it does delay how much you need to sleep, essentially. So a bit like caffeine, which is also a stimulant. And like in the real world, it is addictive. So there's a 10% chance of addiction developing to this, which is, fairly moderate. So every time you use it, 10% chance of addiction. And that gives you a debuff of -1 to perception and charisma. But you can use it in a recipe, a crafting recipe. I don't know if we've got a campfire here. That's the only thing I forgot to check. Oh, there's lots of ravens at this spot as well. I keep forgetting that I've got that perk on this character where when you kill an enemy with an energy weapon, they explode. Anyway, campfire. So, if you have Honest Hearts, you do need the Honest Hearts DLC in order to make this black coffee. So you need your survival skill of 15, which is pretty low. You need a coffee mug, a coffee pot, Coyote tobacco chew, and honey mesquite pod. And you can brew yourself up some coffee. So the black coffee does give you an immediate heal. That depends on your survival skills. So I artificially boosted the survival skills so that I could see all the recipes and things. So get HP plus 15, intelligence plus 6, and minus agility of 3. So you're getting a fairly hefty boost of intelligence at the expense of your agility. And if you're in hardcore mode, the black coffee does also reduce your sleep need, a tiny bit of hunger, and adds a bit to dehydration, so it makes you more thirsty, less tired, slightly less hungry. It's a very small amount, but caffeine is a mild diuretic after all, so that makes perfect sense. And the coffee is non-addictive per the game, so that's a plus as well. So that's the only recipe really that the Coyote tobacco chew is used in. And we've got another plant that we want to talk about today, so we'll find a location where there is some. Okay, so there is actually some pretty nearby to here. So behind Good Spring Source, there's a broken radio thingy. Ah, there we go. Perfect. Right, so the other plant we're talking about today is white horse nettle. So I'm only doing 2 today. The reason for that is because I wanted to introduce the concepts, and also this plant has a massive amount of utility in this game for crafting, so there's a lot to talk about. So this is Solanum elegifolium. I am not going to be able to pronounce that, but I will put the text on the screen so that you can see what I mean. These Latin names sometimes are basically unpronounceable. So it's a tall flowering plant, and you can see actually the flowers. They're little purple 5-petaled flowers, and it does seem to be that you harvest the berries when you harvest this plant. When we get to the vegetables, you'll see that same genus Solanum again. So it's an interesting note that this Solanum plants are members of the nightshade family of plants. That includes belladonna, which is also known as deadly nightshade, and also the plant that the drug atropine is derived from, which is used for managing some eye things and managing certain things during anaesthetics and stuff like that. Also includes your tobacco plants, your bell peppers, your chili peppers, your tomatoes, and your potatoes. So all of these plants are in the nightshade family, and they're all related to each other. So obviously some of them are more toxic than others, but just an interesting thing to know, which we will talk about a bit more when we get to the vegetable section. So white horse nettle has these purple star-shaped kind of flowers that the petals tend to be kind of pointed at the end, and in real life they tend to have these kind of yellow centres, which we don't really have here, but in the real plant, that is what they look like. But it's got these long leaves with kind of wavy edges, which you can see on these plants here. It's capable of growing in poor soil and needs little water, so it can thrive in these kind of environments, especially when we're in, the Mojave Desert, where water is scarce. The soil quality isn't great for a lot of other plants. This one is a toxic plant to both humans and livestock. It seems to impact the blood-brain barrier, So this is a barrier, a physiological barrier that prevents certain metabolites, certain things crossing into the brain from the bloodstream where they could be toxic. So an interesting one is a drug called loperamide, which is known as Imodium, and it's used to treat diarrhea. But a lot of people are unaware that it is actually an opiate, so it's in the same family of drugs as morphine and methadone and all those other ones. There's quite a few of them now. But because loperamide can't cross that blood-brain barrier, it can't affect the nervous system, so it doesn't have the same pain-killing effects. But its effectiveness is the same as all opiates, that it slows down gut motility, which helps with the runs if you have the runs, but it can't cross that barrier into the brain, so it can't affect the nervous system. So that barrier is very important for protecting the body and protecting the brain from certain things. And one of the issues is that because this plant can disrupt the blood-brain barrier, and this is something that's been seen in horses, is that it can increase the toxicity risk of ivermectin. Now, I know this is something that's been talked about, but ivermectin is not a safe drug for quite a number of species. It's deadly to turtles, tortoises, zebra finches, and sometimes collies, as in the dog breed collies. It does have serious effects on the central nervous system if it's able to cross the blood-brain barrier in any species. The effect on the nervous system is what makes it an effective anti-parasite drug, but it has to be used with caution. And horses that have eaten this plant, they are potentially then at risk of toxic effects of ivermectin. So it isn't an easy drug. It's not a safe drug in all circumstances and should be used with caution. So just to get that little PSA out of the way. So let's see what white horse nettle can do for us in New Vegas. So it is consumable in its raw form, but not recommended. So I'm just going to harvest this one, and we can take a look at what the Pip-Boy says about it. It's going to be near the bottom because that's how the alphabet works. There we go, white horse nettle. So it does seem to be like little berries or seeds that we've harvested from the plant. So you do get HP per second. It's 3, which again, that's dictated by your survival skill. So a tiny amount of healing, but minus endurance and minus agility as well. So it is toxic if you consume it, and that effect lasts for 2 minutes. In hardcore mode, it is counted as food, and it does reduce your starvation by 5, but with these debuffs, it's probably not worth it to consume as is. But the interesting thing about it is that it's used in an awful lot of recipes, a lot of crafting recipes, mostly poisons. So we'll go back to the campfire and have a look, because I think most of the recipes are there. So it's not used in any food items to cook food, but it is used in lots of recipes here. So let's have a look, see. Okay, so bleak, yeah, here we go, bleak venom, where is it? There it is, there. So bleak venom, so you make 3 with this recipe, and you need survival of 50, 3 bark scorpion poison glands, 1 cazador poison gland, and 1 white horse nettle, and that creates 3 of these bleak venom, which does minus 15 damage for 10 seconds. So that's minus 15 HP per second for 10 seconds. So it's a fairly potent poison, and you can actually apply these poisons to your unarmed or melee weapons in the game, and they can be quite effective, especially against enemies that have armour. And then the next recipe we've got is under M. There it is, Mother Darkness. So this is another poison. Uses the same ingredients, but you need 5 white horse nettle instead of 1. And you also need survival of 75 to make this recipe. So it's quite a large amount of items, and you also need to deal with some bark scorpions, which isn't too challenging, and some cazadors, which is generally a bit more difficult to achieve. But this poison does do less damage, so it's only minus 8 hit points for 10 per second for 10 seconds, but it also does reduce agility and perception in the enemy for a minute, so potentially still very, very useful, even if the actual poison damage isn't that high, you are still really it's going to have quite an adverse effect on your enemies, this one. So that's another one, and the recipe does make 3 of them, which is interesting. And then we've got Silver Sting, which is easier poison to make. You only need 13 in your survival skill. You need 3 bark scorpion poison glands, you need 1 rad scorpion poison gland, and 1 white horse nettle. And this one's quite good as well. So -8 hit points per second for 10 seconds, same as the Mother Darkness one, and strength reduced for 1 minute as well. So again, if you're up against a big tough melee enemy, this poison might just save your hide. So it's potentially quite useful, and it is something I'd like to kind of mess about with a bit more in these games, because I never really paid it too much attention in my earlier playthroughs, but there's potential here for something quite interesting. And then next one, we go a wee bit further down, is Tremble. So this one's an interesting one. This is wild. So this is a poison. You need 90 in survival skill to make it. So very, very high level of survival. You need Cazador poison gland, 2 rad scorpion poison glands, and a white horse nettle. So this one does -2 hit points per second for 20 seconds. But it also reduces guns, explosives, melee weapons, and energy weapons by 50 each. And that effect lasts for 20 seconds as well. So, short acting, but really, really hamstringing any kind of enemy that you're up against potentially. So again, it's something you can even apply these poisons to thrown weapons like the spears. The thrown spears, you can actually use the poisons on them. So, definitely some interesting potential with using this plan, and we're not even finished yet. We also need to use white horse nettle and turpentine to tan gecko hide. So you can see up here you've got your tanned fire gecko hide, tanned gecko hide, tanned golden gecko hide, and tanned green gecko hide. So the amount of items you need vary slightly. So basically they get higher the more dangerous and difficult the gecko is to hunt, essentially. So the normal geckos, you only need 1 white horse nettle, 1 turpentine, and the gecko hide, whereas fire gecko you need 2 turpentine, golden gecko, which are the strongest, you need 2 turpentine, and the green gecko you need 3 turpentine and 2 white horse nettle. And the green geckos are the giant ones, but I think the golden geckos are still slightly stronger, if I remember correctly from when we did the geckos. That's quite a long time ago now. But yeah, so if you want to tan these gecko hides, which does make them worth more money potentially, but one of the benefits you have is that you can then use these tanned hides and a survival skill of 80 to create the gecko backed leather armour. So you need 1 of each of these, except the normal gecko. So you need a tanned fire gecko hide, a tanned golden gecko hide, and a tanned green gecko hide and leather armour, and a survival skill of 80, and you can craft the gecko backed armour. I think that has to be, oh no, it's here, yeah, there we go. So gecko backed metal armour you can do as well, leather armour. So you've got potentially a lot of options for that. So if you're off hunting geckos, you can use that to make some really interesting pieces of armour for yourself that do have more kind of resistance to radiation and things like that, as you can see. So a lot of potential there again if you really want to get crafty and make some interesting things for yourself. And then the final one is a healing item actually that the white horse nettle is involved with. And this is added by Lonesome Road. So this recipe comes from the Lonesome Road DLC, and it's called Fiery Purgative. So it's a home remedy that purges toxins and radiation from the body. So you need vodka, you need a white horse nettle, and you need a jalapeno. And combining them with survival skill of 25 gives you the Fiery Purgative. So it reduces your rads by 5 per second for 10 seconds. It reduces your endurance by 1 for about 10 seconds, but it does also cure animal poison. So it clears out poison, reduces your rads at the expense of a little bit of your endurance, probably because of the spicy from the jalapenos. So, you know, some really interesting recipes, and I think if you've not really kind of messed with the crafting system in Fallout New Vegas, it's worth taking a look at, because one thing that I'm learning by, you know, putting these videos together is that there is actually a lot to it, and the DLC's added even more. So really interesting to kind of get into these and explore it properly. So that'll do for today, because that was quite a lot of information. Next week we're going to look at some of the plants that you can find in Fallout 4, and then we'll move on to the vegetables, the fruit, the seeds that you can find, and various other things. So hopefully you'll come back for that. If you enjoyed it, let me know. Any thoughts I'd love to hear in the comments. Have you used any of these poisons? Have you tried any of this crafting? Let me know, and I'll see you all next time. Okay, bye.